Hey everyone, it's Nurse Dani, and I'm always excited about our live streams, but I've been extra excited about today because it's Bring Your Husband to Work Day for me. This is my husband, Rob, and 3 other key players behind the scenes of Intermountain Moms, and so I'm excited for all of you to meet them too. They have a lot to do with our Facebook page. So we're going to talk all things dads today. So pregnancy, labor, delivery, parenthood from a dad's perspective. It's going to be awesome. I'm really excited. So I want all of you to have a chance to introduce yourselves, starting with Rob. How long have you been married?
We've been married for 16 years.
And how many kids do we have?
And we have 2 kids, Bronson and Elena, 10 and 6. So I'm somewhat out of the newborn stage, but still rocking the young kid stage. So
and the teenage stage doesn't seem too far away. That's very frightening.
Yeah, I'm counting the blessings right now that all we have to do is fight about going to bed and eating vegetables and playtime. None of the more difficult teenage conversations.
Yeah, me too. Okay, this is Ryan. Ryan, what do you do for Intermountain? And tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm a videographer for Intermountain, and just do all things video production.
He's usually like behind the camera, so today he gets to be in front of it.
Yes, it's a little trickier behind the camera.
It is.
Yeah. Or in front of the camera than behind. So I have 3 kids. I have a 2, a 4, and a 5-year-old.
2, 4, 5.
Yeah.
So you're a little bit closer to that newborn stage than we are.
Yeah.
We were actually talking about it last night and reminiscing about a few things that we'll probably expound on a little bit later. It's fun to revisit that and think about it again, because when you get far away from it, you forget a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, so Colin, tell us about you.
Yes, so I get to be on the other side of the Facebook page with all of you and help Dani with questions, and we get the videos and see what we need to bring and hopefully have great commentary for everyone. We get to really come up with all the fun ideas and deliver those diapers to everyone.
He's your man. If you want a daily delivery, he's the one sending you diapers.
You can get mad at me, it's all good.
Okay, so your family, tell us about your kids.
So got 3 kids, got 10, 7, and 4. And a couple girls and a little dude who we just have a great time. And kind of like you, I'm relishing in the smaller moments in life, even though we have had some hard conversations already, but it's a blast. We have a good time.
Okay, Sean.
Yeah, so I work with Colin. We work for an agency that works directly with Colin and kind of running the Facebook page. I work kind of behind the scenes as well with some of the videographers, making sure that things happen and kind of the logistics of everything. So
and dad-wise?
Oh yeah, so I have 1 little girl. She's about 7 months old. Well, just 7 months old. So some of these guys I feel a little in over my head because I'm the rookie and these are all the seasoned veterans. But
it's just fresh for you.
She's adorable, and so I'm kind of more in the newborn phase than most of these guys. But it's been awesome.
Some of you might recognize Sean. Him and his wife starred in our breathing and relaxation video.
Unfortunately for everybody that watched, yes, that was.
No, you guys were awesome. So if you haven't already watched that, you need to check it out. Okay, I want to start out by doing a little quiz game. So everyone grab your whiteboards. Let's see how much you guys know. Maybe Sean, maybe you'll do a little bit better since you're in this newborn stage. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, how many diapers does the average baby go through per year?
Like pounds?
Nah. Good point.
What metric are we using?
What do you think?
10 per day.
Think about 10. Oh, yeah.
If any of you out there have some guesses, go ahead and put them on the Facebook page too. I'm interested to know what everyone thinks. I remember Rob and I felt like we got a raise once our kids were out of diapers and they weren't drinking formula anymore. No more expensive Costco runs for that.
So
is everyone ready?
Waiting on Colin.
Do. Come on, Colin.
Got it.
Ryan, are you ready?
Yes, okay.
Okay. Everyone, reveal. Let's see. Rob says 4,000, 3682 or 6 tons. 3,700 and 4,500.
Kind of.
Okay, so I did a little math of my own, and if a baby went through 8 diapers a day, it would be about 2,900 per year. And, you have to account for the newborn stage where they go through like 8 to 12 a day, but as they get a little bit older, it gets a little bit less, So some of you were kind of close, yeah.
Still a lot of diapers.
Yeah.
Divide that by like a Costco box. Yeah, we figured we'd probably spend about $1,000.
You got to really stretch those changes later in life. Really stretch it.
Yeah. What's the stat? Okay. Oh, this is a good one. Okay. What's the standard advice on how long after childbirth you should wait until you and your partner can have sex again? From a dad's perspective, I'm so curious.
How long?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a right answer here.
This is fresh, so I better get this.
Depends on the situation. Let's see.
I was doing we do Ask the Expert every month, with KUTV. And one month I was there answering the phones, and a dad called in and he said, I guess maybe I should tell the story after because I give away the answer. So stay tuned. You guys all have your answer.
Nice job.
I think you cheated.
Okay, 6 weeks, 6 weeks, 5 weeks. 5 weeks? Okay, 6 weeks is a good rule of thumb. There's a couple of reasons for that because everything has to heal. Mom goes in to have her postpartum visit and can check everything out, make sure that she's not going to pop a stitch. That gives her a little confidence and it's going to be okay. And, some women are like ready to go. Some want to wait a little while because they're tired or they still feel sore or whatever. So, it's just good to talk about it with each other. It's a good conversation to actually have about it. Okay, so back to the guy on the phone. He said, is that 6 week rule really a real thing? And I wanted to be like, yes, click. Like women don't just say that to get out of it. There's good reason for that. Plus the cervix actually has to close after delivery. It takes some time for that to happen. And otherwise, if you do it too soon, you can cause infection. And then birth control, that's also something you have to consider because you don't want babies coming. You don't want to find out you're pregnant when you still have like a 2-month-old, right?
The sneaky one.
Go to the doctor, get some birth control on board, and then you're good. Okay, when does the baby usually begin to smile socially?
Ooh, socially.
That's a huge day. When they look at you for the first time and you feel like they're smiling because they like you and they think you're funny.
It's going to be a shot in the dark.
I don't know. I'm probably way off on this.
All right.
I'm not talking
Ready?
gas smiles, right?
Yeah, no gas smiles. Those happen pretty soon after they're born. Okay. Colin says 1 month or one really good joke. 5 months, 2 months, 3 months. Okay, it's about 2 to 3 months. So you guys are right there. And that, like I said, that's a very rewarding day. Okay, one more. I have to say this just because we have a running joke between us about how big our kids' heads are. We love them to death, but they have massive heads. So how big is a baby's head in relation to its body after birth? Like in a fraction, like is it half the size of the body, a third, a fourth? Moms know this because they pushed it out.
Right after birth, right?
Yeah, like during the newborn stage,
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Okay, Rob.
I'm gonna go
Fourth,
with a fourth.
third, fourth. A fourth is correct.
Yeah, look at that.
I've seen a third in some literature too, but I've never actually gotten a tape measure out to see
You just can
what the
tell.
proportion is. It's a large part of the head. So that's why we don't do breech deliveries. We don't do breech deliveries when the baby, we don't do vaginal deliveries for a breech baby. Let me say that one more time. Because the head needs to pave the way for everything else to come, or else the head can actually get stuck if it's the last thing to come. So, okay. So good job. You guys are pretty knowledgeable. I think that qualifies you for a few more questions. So just a generic question. I was reading through a lot of the posts that we got on our Facebook page. We actually prompted people to tell us things that they'd like to hear from dads. And I would say a common theme among the women who posted was, I want to know what my husband thinks I do during the day when I'm at home with the kids and he's at work. Go. What do you think I do at home with the kids?
When the kids were newborn. Because now I know there's a lot of Nurse Dani going on, but sometimes, now that we've had kids for a long time, I kind of know that there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and I've always known that, but I think it's important to be mindful that raising a child is hard, and that things are different after the baby comes, that you just be understanding of it. And I tried to be understanding it. I tried to not have any huge expectations for when I came home, expecting dinner on the table or anything like that.
Yeah,
so
you've always been really good at
so
that.
I think it's just making sure your expectations are in the right place. And if you've, for us, we were married for 7 years before we had kids, and so we had a long time to get into a certain rhythm, and that changed, but it was all great change, but it was just different.
Yeah. You were very familiar with the routine because I went back to work at the hospital on labor and delivery just a couple of months after the baby was born. So you got to get up at night with the baby and do all of that stuff. So I think you got a pretty good idea. And what?
And make lots of calls to you. Be like,
I remember a few of those. Or like he'd call me like at 4 or 5 in the morning and be like, the baby's crying. Do I wait for you to get home or do I feed him? But yeah, so you were right there along with me in the trenches. Okay, Ryan, what do you think your wife does at home all day?
Oh man, she breaks up fights. The kids, they're in a very fighty stage. I hope it's a stage right now, but yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And she's just so busy taking him to, preschool and getting him to the bus stop and things like that. So I know she has a really busy day. She just recently went out of town for the weekend, so I got him for a whole weekend, and so I got a good taste of what it's like. And it's not easy.
Breaking up all those fights.
Yes.
I honestly think that it's easier to go to work than it is to stay home with the kids. Honestly. So yeah, those of you who've experienced that would appreciate it. Colin, what does your wife do all day?
In a perfect world, I'd like to think napping.
She eats bonbons.
Yeah, after one kid, I think that goes away really fast. And now it's kind of new announcement. Now that we're expecting again, it's like we're hoping.
Congratulations!
Congrats, man. We're hoping she's napping again to get the extra rest. But 3 other ones, survival at this point. Get the other ones to school and hope.
That's so exciting. How far along is she?
Ways. I don't know how many weeks. April's a due date.
April's a due date. Well, we'll have to have her on for something. Good to know.
She would probably like that.
Sean.
So it's funny because I think Lauren would completely agree that before we had, a child, that we both kind of thought like, what do moms do, while they're at home all day? And Lauren, she thought the same thing, and she wasn't sure if she wanted to go back to work or stay home, and there, all those questions were swirling. And as soon as we had Ari, it was amazing how busy you are from sun up until sundown, just doing all the little small things, right? And I didn't really get a taste of it until I stayed at home for a few days of my paternity leave, and man, it was a very eye-opening experience, especially with a newborn that, they're not on really any sleep schedule. They're not on any real eating schedule yet, and you're trying to get them there. But it's constant, it's constant watching and just making sure that they're okay and that they're eating and they're sleeping, and it's nonstop. It really is 24 hours a day.
The amount of anxiety you experience is huge. We were kind of talking about this last night because during pregnancy, of course, everyone stresses. Is everything okay? Is the baby okay? And I've heard so many moms say, if I could just get this baby out, I'll stop worrying. I've heard that so many times working on labor and delivery and in maternal fetal medicine. And the fact of the matter is they pop out and your worries are just different.
Yeah.
They are not lessened. And in fact, I would say it's heightened because now you have so many other things to do for them and you worry about them so much. So, okay. We have a couple of questions that were, actually, let's get to these first. These are common dad questions. Okay, Rob, this one's for you. What's the best way for my husband to interact with my kids when he leaves at 8 a.m. and doesn't get home till after 6?
Yeah,
He's so good at this, by the way. He's such a good dad.
Setting me up, thank you. So for me, it's been just trying to find things that I can identify with the kids with. Right now, our 6-year-old loves video games, so we went out and found some really age-specific video games on the Xbox, and he loves to play Lego video games. So we take at least 30, 45 minutes every day, or not every day. He'd love it to be every day, but it's when we can, and we'll play video games for a little while, and he thinks that's the greatest thing ever. And our daughter, I try and find things to do with her, like if she loves to play board games, card games, and just taking...
We've taken up Nerds lately. I am a Nerds champion, but
we can't beat mom at that card game, no matter how hard we try. But it's just finding things that the kids like to do, and it doesn't have to be long. It usually only has to be 15 minutes, half an hour into them. I think that's about all they need. But just being distraction free and finding things that they want to do.
I love that. Finding something that they want to do, because often we want to pull our kids along and do what we want to do and help them like that. But it means so much to get down on their level to do something that they want to do, and that time is priceless and invaluable.
So that means getting on the floor and playing Barbies or playing cars or whatever it is.
Yep. Like I said, you're so good at that. And our kid, it shows. They just adore him and love him. Okay, so Ryan, our parenting styles are different. How do you balance parenting styles with your children?
Yeah, my wife and I, our parenting styles are definitely different. So we have to, so our 5-year-old, he's pretty smart. He'll kind of try to work us because we both deal with things differently. So what we've been doing lately, we've been trying to do better at, is talk about it without them around, have a plan, so I know exactly what the answer is if he asks for whatever, and we're on the same, like if my wife had said no earlier and then I say yes, there's that problem. So it's important to communicate before, so you're ready for when they come at you with their questions.
Consistency, that's so key. Oh yeah, I'm sure we've all experienced that, those of us who have older kids. I think just yesterday, Bronson came and asked me for something and I said no, and he went and asked you right after that. And I'm like, the answer is no. Sometimes there has to be impromptu communication prior to the response, right?
They're good with that baggy face.
Yeah.
They are. Oh yeah.
It comes real soon.
Yeah, those puppy eyes, they know how to turn it on.
Well, I always knew that my dad was the one that would, say yes. So,
Went to him. Yeah.
so I'd always go to my dad first, right?
Yeah, they learn that really quickly. So, Colin, what should my husband and I do if we don't agree on some aspect of childcare?
Ooh, that's a tough one because I still don't agree with some things, and I know my wife doesn't agree with me on some things. So we always try to talk about it, and as much as it happens in the moment when you're either disciplining or talking or bringing up a subject or doing something that may not be like "don't tell mom" type of a thing that you're doing, and one of the things that we always try to do, even though it's at that moment, it can make you more angry at the time, but it's to immediately say, if you're getting intense, you're being a little too intense right now. In the moment, in your head, you're like, don't tell me when I'm intense. You kind of start. It lumps on quickly, but you also just as quickly start reverting back away from, okay, yeah, I probably am, or if it's something you're doing, like, okay, well, here's why. And it also gives you a chance to talk to the kids too, depending on how old they are, what they can understand of why you may or may not do things as a family, or why or things as a parent you do. They understand, they get it, whether you tell them or not, they perceive it. They'll ask you later, why did you do that? And mom said no, or why are you, the kids are smart. So we try to be open with each other as much and try to, in the moment, softly nudge each other in the right direction, and we also just bring the kids in on that too, to talk about them with them openly about, here's why we do or don't do things, here's why or why not we got upset. And sometimes too that requires swallowing some pride with your spouse and the kids too, of saying, that was advice. My fault, here's why. It's hard.
That is really good advice. Well, and in the end, you have a common goal. You both just want what's best for your kids, right? And for each other. And so I love how you said that. Swallow your pride. Remind the other. I've done this before. I've been like, you always tell me to simmer down. That's your. He's like, you need to simmer down, and I'm like, you need to calm down. And then I kind of gather myself, and I think, yeah, I'm being a little ridiculous right now. Okay, so back to square one. What are we talking about? Like, sometimes you even forget what you were fighting about. Good advice. Okay, Sean, what can a new dad do to bond with the newborn since he obviously can't nurse?
No, that was a big question, and when I saw this, I felt like that was kind of a big topic of discussion between me and Lauren for a long time. And I feel like it's just doing all the small little things that might be a chore for the wife that can actually be bonding with you and the baby. I love giving Ari baths. I think that's a really good time that I can just sit there and play with her and, have a good time. And I think doing things like feeding her and once they're starting to eat solids and things like that, taking some of that off the mom's plate, and then giving you an opportunity to actually get some one-on-one time with the baby is a really good thing. One thing that I love to run, and so one thing that I've been able to do is just take her in her little jogger stroller, take her for little runs. That's awesome. And I feel like it that's been some good just me and baby time that I feel has kind of made up the gap with that was there otherwise when Lauren would be breastfeeding or doing some of the other things that only a mom can do.
That's awesome. Can I embarrass you for a minute? I have a story from Lauren.
Oh no.
So she's adorable. I love his wife. And she shared a very tender story about you. Okay, so she says that you guys had quite a few years to establish routines before you had kids, and you thought, we're going to have a baby and she'll eat and sleep whenever we do, and we can take her everywhere we like to go, and of course she'll be happy all the time. No big deal, we've got this. Reality smacked, punched, and kicked us hard. Ari was about 2 months, and although I loved being a new mom, I missed my old predictable routine. I was still out on maternity leave and was having a particularly draining day. Sean came home from work, kissed me on the forehead, and said, thanks for all you do. I've got Ari for a couple of hours. I don't care what you do. That time is yours. I was in tears. Just to have a couple of hours to myself was exactly what I needed. After a walk up the canyon and a visit to my best friend Target, which we all know is the greatest of all therapies, I came home to a happy baby, a loving husband, and one of my favorite dinners. She says, Sean, you're an incredible dad and an exceptional husband. I love you and thank you for all you do for me.
Oh. She makes me look better than I am.
So I wish I don't know your guys' wives, so I can contact them and find out something just as good. But it's going to be obvious.
It's probably safer that way.
It's going to be obvious by the time we're done today that you guys are all awesome dads and husbands. Okay, so we have a couple more questions that were prompted by statements made on our Facebook page. So we'll start back with you, Rob. The first while after having a child can be difficult. That's an understatement. Was there anything that you did after your children were born that helped you find a way to help your wife, and I would add yourself, get through the newborn stage?
So I think it was just listening to Mom, listening to you and the things that you needed and trying to help wherever I could. I know for us, the whole feeding thing was always a challenge. And so I think just having the open conversation, like I remember with Elena, our youngest.
Oldest.
Oldest. You tried so hard to get her to breastfeed and she just wouldn't.
I've shared stories with everyone out there. My first experience was awful, and he can attest to that.
It was pretty bad. I remember one day coming home from work and you were sitting on the couch and you were trying to pump and it just wasn't working and you were sick because I think
I had mastitis.
And it was just terrible. And I remember having a conversation, just asking you, Dani, maybe it's time to try something else. Maybe for your sanity, our sanity,
you
the
said,
baby.
why are you doing this to yourself?
Why are you doing this to yourself? And I think it's just having that. I think it was Colin who was saying, just having that communication, and talking to your wife and figuring out what she needs and then doing that, not just listening it, but actually following through on the stuff that she says. and not trying to make up your own stuff, but just do exactly what she asks.
And sometimes those spontaneous hugs are exactly what she might need, or I totally just lost my train of thought because I was just thinking about how amazing you are. I remember what I was going to say. You can be each other's best ally or worst enemy. I say that all the time when I talk about postpartum depression and stuff. And I definitely I hope I was your best ally, you were mine, because we would talk about all the things that we were anxious about or the things that bothered us or, all the things that we were worried about. And I felt like I could go to you with anything and that you would, at the very least, just listen if there wasn't something you could do about it. And, everyone says that guys like to fix the problems. Well, a lot of these problems are ones you can't fix. And so sometimes all she needs is a listening ear and a hug. So you're always really good at that.
That's my downfall. Tell me what's wrong and I'll solve the problem. But sometimes I just need to, and she tells me all the time, says, just shut up and sit here. And that's what I do. I just, all right. Whenever you're ready to talk.
Problem.
I'll wait. And it works good.
Yeah, sometimes all you need. And to know you've got someone in your back corner. Okay, Ryan. New mother hormones are out of whack for a bit. The roller coaster will smooth out. With that in mind, how did you deal with your wife's hormones? And what did you do to help her through those touchy times? And if she's watching, be careful what you say.
Yeah, she might be. We have 3 kids, and how she dealt with the kid was different for each one. So the first one, she was just fine, just all right. But the next 2, I don't know if it was postpartum, but I think she was a little more gloomy and more anxious and all the other things. And I think it had something to do with that she had other kids to take care of as well as a newborn.
That adds a whole new element to it.
Yeah, and I think that really got to her. The thing that really, like we said before, that works with my wife and me is just listening to her, and And I do the same thing. Is I try to solve problems, but sometimes you just have to lend an ear and let her talk it out. And she does better if she talks things out with me, and I think it makes her feel more in control and more on top of things like that. So listening to her, and it's like a good shoulder massage, just get in there.
Oh yeah, every mom's gonna agree with that.
That goes a long way. It kind of alleviates that immediate stress for a second, So I try to do that as much as I could, just a little, little massage here and there. So little things like that.
Good advice. Every dad out there needs to be watching.
Yeah.
Okay, Colin. This is from Trisha Lovelace. She said, we're pretty open with each other and on pregnancy number 9. I don't think there's a lot that either of us don't know as far as us in pregnancy parenthood. We each have our roles and they are both important and different and difficult at times. We both understand that. So a good question with this is, how did you and your wife separate roles and how have you evolved from that point?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I don't know if we ever really applied roles, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. It was always, I'm happy to help and I want to help. And so I don't necessarily know how to help sometimes. So sometimes I need to be told you need to do this because this is what has to be done.
Let me just ask this really quick. Sorry to interrupt, but do you guys appreciate to-do lists?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because then you know what to do.
Definitely.
It gets done that way.
And
We
you're
know
doing
what
the
to
things
do.
she wants you to do.
Dani loves lists, so she texts my lists to me, and I work from that text and accomplish all of her tasks.
It works out nicely, and he's really good at doing them. Okay, so sorry to interrupt.
No.
I think that's good.
Yeah, no, it really comes down to, some of the stuff I obviously can't do, but we'll take turns. Like, we just know you're on second shift, so when in feeding times in the middle of the night, tell me when, which one's mine, and I'll be ready for it. If the baby needs changed, I'll take care of it. If someone's crying, it's more of what's the need and who can do it really quickly, other than,
That's what you do in the
I do the garbage, you do the dishes type of thing. It doesn't work that way for us, and it never has. And I've had other family members even comment to me of like, why do you change so many diapers? Like, it's not the 50s anymore. I don't know the answer to that other than because it needed done. And so I think it's good to have those roles. If some things make sense, some people are more comfortable with that, because I know some people don't like to clean up messes that come out of kids. And I get it. And so and that happens to us. If someone pukes, I'm coming in to take care of that one. I just know that's what I got to do. But all the other stuff, it's how can I help? How can I get in? I think creating the roles sometimes can cause some more friction than it needs to, because it's not, you can't check out. It's like, nope, that's yours.
And if their roles were needed more than your roles that day, then they're going to feel overwhelmed and you're going to be sitting back, so.
Yeah, so I think we've always tried not to have assigned roles in that, other than, sometimes it's with the feeding cycles, it's your role is going to be the second, fourth feeding. Some good advice that I got from a past coworker one day was, split the night in half. Like, you take everything, because he worked early in the morning. You take everything, I'll take everything from like 9 p.m. up until 1 a.m. From 1 a.m. on, I got to sleep because I got to get ready to go to work at 5. So you take that half. And so it worked really well for them. And we've kind of adapted that to work for us, where we just rotate, or if depending on the next day, we have shifts.
I love that. That's one of the things I appreciated that you did that too. At least you'd stay up with me and the baby till like 12 or 1, and then you'd go to bed so that I could get like some solid sleep after putting the baby down at 1 till like maybe 4-ish or something, and then I'd take care of the baby the rest of the time so you could go to work. But as a woman, I also want to highlight the fact that going to work and being a dad of a new baby is not easy either. So, we're home taking care of the baby and we're tired and dealing with all that too, but you've got a lot to stress about, and you're pretty distracted, I imagine, when you go back to work and you know that you're leaving your wife and new baby at home. Do you guys have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I remember when we had our oldest, I had just switched jobs. Like, I think it had been just a couple of months.
You just started working for Intermountain.
Yeah, I started working for Intermountain, and I didn't have a lot of vacation time, so I literally only took like a weekend off.
I think I delivered on Wednesday. You went to work on Thursday. You worked a half day on Friday, and then I came home from the hospital, and we were home together Saturday, Sunday, and then you had to go back on Monday because you had no time, and it was rough.
And I remember sitting at work and feeling like I had, abandoned my wife and my newborn baby, and it was tough. Tough for the mom too, but dads are are feeling bad when we're going to. It's not always like, oh, I'm so excited to go to work, because you do feel to some degree like you're abandoning your family to go back to work. And in our case, we just didn't have a lot of time, so that one was a little bit rough.
Yeah.
Those seem tougher than the later ones for me. Early on, it's kind of, with one, it's like, okay, this is how it's going to go, and we're just have to figure this out. And you get the phone calls of, what do I do? And I can't help. And then you feel like that moment of, oh, I'm helpless at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
But it hits me later on, now that they're getting older and doing activities and going to places and having field trips, and they need chaperones or want you to come, or asking you, are you going to make sure you're going to be at the dance thing? It's just like, kind of that abandon, like how do you
both? Balance work and family? That's the question of life, right? Yeah. And I think different things need to take a spotlight at different times in life. Maybe work is going to be really intense for a while. Hopefully that doesn't time itself with a new baby. But then maybe you can give a little more attention to your family. Take time to go on family vacations and build those bonds. Yeah. Okay, so Sean, this person says, we didn't do birthing classes, so I would like my husband to know some basics of what he should do while I'm in labor. So talk about some of the things you did and learned to help your wife through labor. And you're the perfect one for this because, like I said, you starred in our video.
Well, yeah, so if you haven't seen the video, go watch it. It's the breathing relaxation techniques, right?
Yep,
well, and
awesome.
I'm so glad that I was able to do that, because that was one of the things I was most worried about. Kind of like going back to most of these questions kind of revolve around the fact that Lauren and I, we always wanted to split everything 50-50, right? When in reality, she's going to be taking on a lot, whether it's in labor, she's taking on a lot of the pain, and me as the dad and the husband, I feel kind of helpless, right? Like, what can I do? And a lot of the techniques, they're so simple, and it's funny because you'd think of them yourself, but in the moment, I feel like that you need to have a good grasp of what some of those techniques are, and taking a birthing class is one way to really get them ingrained. But I think some of the simple things, just, massaging and being there for your wife and making sure that you're not asleep while she's in labor in the middle of the night, right?
I can't tell you how many dads just checked out and watched like the football game. No joke. I was working during a Super Bowl one time, and she was like pushing. He's like, hold on, honey, hold on. They're about to make a touchdown. I saw that so many times, and I'm like, come on.
and I feel like there's a lot of funny things as well. Like in the breathing relaxation techniques video, we went over kind of the pregnancy dance is what they call it, and I thought in the moment, that's so funny. Like, there's no way that would actually help.
Yeah.
But when she was actually in labor, we did it, and it actually helped her quite a bit. Or there was one part where one of the techniques was to tell a story, or do color relations, like talk about something that's blue and talk about the ocean and really go into things like that. And it's really funny because those little distracting things kind of helped Lauren kind of stop focusing on the pain that she was feeling in the moment, even though she still felt a ton of pain. But it helped me feel like I had a job as well.
One of the requests I heard frequently during labor was moms always said, like, especially when she was getting her IV or epidural, and sometimes during contractions, she'd turn to her husband and say, tell me a funny story. Tell me about that one time we went on this. Tell me about our first date. Like, she would want him to tell her something that she could think about that didn't have anything to do with the situation, time, and place she was in. That's really helpful. So have some good stories locked and loaded when she goes in labor.
I think it's also important to remember, dads need to kind of pay attention to what's going on with them too, because, having heard all of your stories about dads who see something that they're not used to seeing, and you hear, a lot of fainting stories. So totally. I think, dads need to be supportive, but also mindful of their own health and at the moment. So if you're feeling woozy, I can't tell you how many times Dani would come home and tell me about, this dad just couldn't handle the needle or the birth, and they would literally pass out right there in the labor and delivery room. There
was two dads, so I have to tell two stories. First, there was this one, and he was like, if she can't eat or drink during labor, I'm not going to either. That's my way of taking one for the team. And I was like, that is not a good idea. And we're going to be up all night, and you're going to be tired, and you're not going to have any food in your stomach. You are going to pass out. He's like, I will be fine. So I brought in some crackers and some juice, and I just put it there. And I'm like, okay, just your job is by the time I come back, you're going to have eaten all this. So I come back and it's still there. And I'm like, you need to eat. And he's like, I just can't bring myself to, because I need to do something for her. And guess who passed out? And I always say you're a real man if you will tell us you're about to go down, because otherwise, like, you just need to sit down and say, I'm not feeling good, and put your head between your knees. That is way better than, like, this one dad in particular. I looked over, she was getting her epidural. And since then, this was a long time ago, we've made dad sit for this reason, but I looked over at him and I could just see the color like visibly draining from his face. So I ran over to him just in time. He was like doing this mini seizure thing. So I like slammed him up against the wall and like slowly helped him to the floor. And then when he came to, we're all like over him laughing. Way more embarrassing to do that than to say, I'm not feeling good and sit down, right? So yeah, you definitely need to watch out for yourself. Make sure that we always sent dads to eat food. Okay, especially one of our tricks was if mom wasn't changing, we'd send him away to the cafeteria to get food, and it usually worked because then all of a sudden she'd be 10 centimeters and we had to call him back. So that was one of our techniques to get her labor to progress, just send dad away. So yeah, I think that's a great point. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about supporting her during labor?
That all covers it pretty well. I think just doing any little small thing you can just to be a part of the experience and kind of, not check out. And I think that at least my wife, she appreciated that. So
yeah, and if she wants you to touch her, touch her. If she doesn't want you to touch her, get your hands off. Because there are some times when that's really helpful. Like I would say in the early stages of labor, like tickling, rubbing, that's all good. But once it gets really intense, she might just want like hands off, and you just need to be like emotional support. Probably one of the most in-tune dads I ever saw was, she was doing Lamaze. And you know how you do that breathing, okay? So they grabbed each other's faces and he was like, 1, 2, 3. And so that corresponded with, she just looked at him like, okay. Like she was trusting him and like, I can do this. And he's like, you're doing great. And just being like encouraging. That's so helpful. That goes so far. I mean, even if you're like, I don't think she can do this, you still say, you can do this.
Delivery nurses game too, because especially on the first one, it's that awkward moment when you're in a crowd or in a party and you don't know where to stand.
Totally, that's a good analogy.
Yeah. You're just kind of like standing over here, and you want support over there, and then the nurses kind of guide you where to go, and usually the doctor's also great to ask you, how much do you want to be involved?
Yeah.
So that, and I had I knew what I wanted to be involved with, and where I wanted to be in the geography of in the room. And
the delivery, usually up by the head is good.
I was good up by the North Pole and helping out there. So but yeah, it was good to have guidance from the nurses and listen to them, because they know what's going on and will involve you at the right times.
We're there for you, totally. Okay, so I think that about covers it. There was I was reading in preparation for this, I came across a list of 50 things every guy should know about pregnancy. And the very last one was my favorite. So it said, of course, babies will change everything. That's the point, right? So, I mean, kind of back to Lauren, what Lauren was saying, you dream of having kids for so long. You have this baby, you think, you have in your mind a vision of what it's going to be like, and it usually is anything but. And reality hits, it gets really hard, and there's going to be an adjustment phase. But like this says, that's the point, right? That's what you knew you were signing up for, something you didn't quite know what you were getting into, but the amount of joy you feel for this child and with each other is just unreal. So I hope that everyone out there has had a good time listening to these stories today. I've had a really good time chatting with you. And I think it's fun for you guys to get to know some of the behind the scenes people, and of course my husband. Thanks for coming today. Of course. If you guys have more questions in the future, of course you know where to find me. You can send me a message on Facebook and look for our live streams in the future. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks.